Have you ever felt a subtle dread you can't quite pinpoint? A quiet hum of anxiety in the background of your life? That's your unspoken fear, and it's influencing you more than you know. In this video, we'll dive deep into the surprising secrets these hidden fears are keeping and how uncovering them can transform your understanding of yourself. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share will change the way you see every decision you've ever made, every relationship you've ever had, and every dream you've ever postponed. This isn't just another self-help video. This is about finally understanding the invisible forces that have been directing your life from the shadows. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you made a major decision without that little voice of doubt creeping in? When was the last time you felt completely free to be yourself, without any filters, without any masks? If you're struggling to answer that, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're about to understand why. Right now, in this very moment, there are 5 invisible forces shaping every choice you make. They're not the fears you talk about at dinner parties. They're not the obvious ones like fear of public speaking or fear of heights. These are deeper, more primal, more insidious, and they've been running the show while you thought you were in control. The reason most people never break through to their next level isn't because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. It's because they're fighting battles they don't even know they're in. They're being held back by fears they've never named, never confronted, and never conquered. Today, that changes. Today, we're going to unmask these 5 secret fears, understand exactly how they're influencing your life, and, most importantly, learn how to transform them from prison walls into stepping stones.
Let's start with the most paradoxical fear of all. Fear number 1, the fear of your own potential. Yes, you heard that right. Deep down, you're terrified of what you're actually capable of. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't make sense. Why would I be afraid of being great? But stay with me. Think about it this way. As long as you believe you're limited, as long as you tell yourself you're not smart enough, not talented enough, not ready enough, you have a perfect excuse for every dream you don't chase. You have a built-in justification for playing small. It's comfortable. It's safe. It requires nothing of you. But the moment you admit your true potential, the moment you acknowledge that you actually have what it takes, everything changes. Suddenly, you're responsible. Suddenly, you have no more excuses. Suddenly, every day you're not pursuing your dreams becomes a choice, not a circumstance. And that's terrifying, because it means every year you've spent in a job you hate wasn't because you had no other options. It was because you were afraid to explore them. Every relationship you've settled for wasn't because you couldn't do better. It was because you were afraid of what better would require of you. This fear manifests in subtle ways. You procrastinate on important projects, you downplay your achievements, you say things like, "I just got lucky," or "anyone could have done that." You surround yourself with people who won't challenge you to grow. You set goals just small enough that you know you can achieve them without really stretching. Because here's the secret your fear doesn't want you to know. Your potential is vast, larger than you've allowed yourself to imagine. And the only thing standing between you and that potential is your willingness to stop pretending it doesn't exist. Fear number 2, the fear of being truly seen. Not your Instagram highlight reel, not your LinkedIn professional persona, not the version of you that always has it together, always knows what to say, always looks put together. I'm talking about the real, raw, unfiltered you, the one with doubts, with insecurities, with scars and stories you've never told anyone. We live in a world obsessed with authenticity, but here's the paradox. Most of us are absolutely terrified of it. We curate our lives like museum exhibits. We rehearse our spontaneity. We filter our filters. Why? Because vulnerability feels like weakness, and weakness feels like danger. So we hide. We hide behind perfectionism, convincing ourselves that if we just get everything right, we'll finally be worthy of love and acceptance. We hide behind humor, deflecting every deep conversation with a joke. We hide behind busyness, staying so occupied that no one has time to really know us. We hide behind achievement, hoping our accomplishments will speak loudly enough that our hearts won't have to. But here's what happens when you spend your whole life hiding. You become a stranger to yourself. You lose touch with what you actually want, what you actually feel, what you actually believe. You build an entire life around a version of yourself that doesn't even exist. And then you wonder why you feel so empty, so disconnected, so exhausted. The fear of being seen shows up in your relationships. You share enough to seem open, but never enough to feel exposed. You ask about others to avoid talking about yourself. You end relationships the moment someone gets too close, convincing yourself it just wasn't right, when really you were just scared. It shows up in your career. You don't speak up in meetings because what if your idea isn't perfect? You don't apply for that promotion because what if they discover you're not as capable as they think? You don't start that business because what if you fail publicly? But here's the truth your fear is hiding. The version of you that you're so carefully concealing, that's the version people are actually looking for. The messy, imperfect, still figuring it out version. Because that's the version that's real. That's the version people can actually connect with. That's the version that gives others permission to be real too.
Fear number 3, the fear of making the wrong choice. This is the fear that keeps you frozen, paralyzed at every crossroads, stuck in analysis paralysis while life passes you by. You research endlessly. You make pro and con lists. You ask everyone for advice. You wait for the perfect moment, the clear sign, the right feeling. But here's what's really happening. You're not being careful. You're being afraid. Because the fear of making the wrong choice isn't actually about the choice itself. It's about what a wrong choice would mean about you. If you choose wrong, does that mean you're stupid? Does it mean you can't trust yourself? Does it mean you're going to waste your life? Does it mean you'll have regrets? So instead of choosing, you don't choose at all, and you convince yourself that indecision is somehow safer than a wrong decision. But here's the brutal reality. Not choosing is a choice. Staying in that job you hate while you wait for the perfect opportunity, that's a choice. Staying in that relationship that doesn't fulfill you while you wait for clarity, that's a choice. Not starting that project while you feel ready, that's a choice. And often, the choice to not choose costs you more than any wrong choice ever could. Because while you're waiting, life is happening. Opportunities are passing. Time is moving. And the person you could have become is waiting on the other side of a decision you're too afraid to make. This fear shows up everywhere. You can't decide what to order at a restaurant because what if you pick wrong and regret it? You can't commit to plans because what if something better comes along? You can't choose a career path because what if you pick wrong and waste years of your life? But think about the most successful people you know, the ones living the most fulfilled lives. They're not people who never made wrong choices. They're people who made choices, learned from them, and kept moving. They understood something crucial. A wrong choice that teaches you something is infinitely more valuable than no choice that teaches you nothing. The fear of making the wrong choice is really the fear of being responsible for your own life. It's more comfortable to blame circumstances, to say, I never had a clear path, than to admit you had paths and were too afraid to walk any of them. Fear number 4, the fear of outgrowing your circle. This is the fear that nobody talks about, but everyone feels. You're evolving, growing, changing, wanting more, thinking differently. And somewhere deep inside, you're terrified that the person you're becoming won't fit with the people you love. So what do? You dim your light. You downplay your growth. You hide your new interests. You laugh at jokes that don't resonate anymore. You participate in conversations that feel shallow. You pretend you haven't changed, even though every cell in your body is screaming that you have, because the alternative feels impossible. Losing the people who've been there, being called different or too good for us now, being misunderstood by the very people who once understood you best. So you contort yourself into old shapes, trying to fit into spaces you've outgrown, and slowly, quietly, you resent everyone involved. This fear is particularly insidious because it disguises itself as loyalty, as love, as not wanting to hurt anyone. But here's what it really is. It's self-abandonment. It's choosing everyone else's comfort over your own growth. It's believing that staying small is somehow more noble than stepping into your fullness. And here's what happens. You start avoiding conversations about your goals because you know they won't understand. You stop sharing your wins because you don't want to make anyone feel bad. You turn down opportunities because accepting them would highlight the gap between where you are and where they are. You sabotage your own success to maintain connection. But the cruelest irony is this. By dimming yourself, you're not preserving the relationship. You're destroying it because the relationship is now based on a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. It's not real connection, it's performance. And eventually, that performance becomes exhausting. The people who truly love you want you to grow. They want you to evolve. They want you to become everything you're meant to be. And if someone in your circle is threatened by your growth, that's not your person. That's not your circle. And holding yourself back for them isn't love. It's fear. True growth sometimes means growing apart. And that's not a tragedy. That's life. That's evolution. That's what happens when you choose yourself. And the right people, your real people, they'll either grow with you or celebrate you from a distance. But they'll never ask you to stay small. Fear number 5. The fear that you're already too late. This might be the most soul-crushing fear of all. The belief that you've wasted too much time, that you've missed your window, that the life you wanted is somehow out of reach now. You see people younger than you achieving the things you dreamed about, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel defeated. You think, I should have started 10 years ago. I'm too old to change careers now. Everyone else figured this out in their 20s. I've already wasted my best years. And with each of these thoughts, you build a prison made of imaginary timelines and arbitrary deadlines. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Too late compared to what? Too late compared to whom? Too late according to which rule book? Because the only timeline that actually matters is the one you're on. And on your timeline, right now is exactly on time. Think about it. Colonel Sanders started KFC at 62. Vera Wang entered the fashion industry at 40. Julia Child published her first cookbook at 50. Alan Rickman landed his first movie role at 46. These aren't exceptions to prove the rule. They're proof that the rule is made up. This fear shows up in devastating ways. You don't go back to school because you'll be 35 when you graduate, completely ignoring that you'll be 35 anyway, just without the degree. You don't start that business because it takes 5 years to build, forgetting that 5 years will pass whether you start or not. You don't pursue that relationship because you feel like you should have settled down by now, as if there's some cosmic deadline you've missed. But the real tragedy isn't that you started late. The real tragedy is letting the fear of being late stop you from starting at all. Because here's the truth. You're not running out of time. You're running out of excuses to not use the time you have. Every single day you wake up is a new opportunity to begin, to change direction, to try something new, to become someone different. The you that existed yesterday doesn't have to be the you that exists today. The choices you made in your 20s don't have to define your 30s, 40s, or beyond. The fear that you're already too late is really the fear of wasting more time. It's the fear that if you try now and it doesn't work, you'll have lost even more years. But you know what guarantees wasted time? Not trying, staying stuck, letting fear convince you that because you didn't start then, there's no point in starting now. Now that we've unmasked these 5 fears, let's talk about what they've actually been doing to your life. Because these fears aren't just abstract concepts. They're not just interesting psychological phenomena. They're active forces shaping every single aspect of your existence. Every time you say, I'm just being realistic, that's fear talking. Every time you say,
Maybe next year. That's fear deciding. Every relationship you sabotage because someone gets too close? Fear. Every dream you postpone because you're waiting to feel ready? Fear. Every version of yourself you refuse to become because it feels too risky? Fear, fear, fear. And the cruelest part? You've normalized it. You've called it wisdom, called it caution, called it being responsible. But wisdom doesn't keep you small. Caution doesn't steal your dreams. Responsibility doesn't require you to abandon yourself. Fear does. But here's where everything changes. When you unmask these fears, when you actually look them in the eye and call them by name, something extraordinary happens. They lose their power. Not because they disappear, they don't, but because you stop letting them drive. Confronting your hidden fears unlocks a level of personal growth you didn't know existed. Suddenly, you're not making decisions from a place of, what if I fail? You're making them from, what if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams? You're not choosing relationships that feel safe. You're choosing ones that feel alive, real, transformative. You're not playing small to make others comfortable. You're stepping into the fullness of who you actually are. This is authenticity, not the Instagram version where everything is curated and filtered. The real thing, where you know yourself so deeply, so completely, that external validation becomes background noise. Where you trust yourself so fully that other people's opinions inform you but don't define you. And this transformation? It creates a ripple effect that touches absolutely everything. Your decisions become clearer because you're no longer filtering them through the lens of unspoken anxiety. That career move you've been avoiding? You finally see it for what it is, not a risk, but an inevitability. That conversation you've been dreading? You finally have it, and you discover it wasn't nearly as scary as your fear made it seem. Your relationships transform because you stop attracting people who need you to stay small. When you're no longer hiding, no longer dimming your light, no longer contorting yourself to fit, you naturally attract people who celebrate your growth. People who challenge you in the best ways. People who see the real you and don't flinch. They lean in. Your overall well-being shifts from survival mode to expansion mode. You sleep better because you're not carrying the weight of all those unspoken fears. You breathe deeper because you're finally being honest with yourself. You stop feeling that heavy, nameless anxiety in your chest because you finally named it, faced it, and moved through it. This is the ripple effect of self-discovery. One brave moment of facing your fears creates waves that touch every single area of your life. Your health improves, your creativity flourishes, your energy expands, your presence deepens. You become magnetic, not because you're perfect, but because you're real.
So here's your challenge, and I need you to really hear me on this. Don't just watch this video and move on. Don't let this be another piece of content you consume and forget. That's what the fearful version of you would do. The empowered version, they take action. Right now, today. Tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to grab a journal or open a note on your phone. Write down these 5 fears. Then I want you to get brutally honest with yourself. Ask, which one of these has been running my life? Get specific. Get uncomfortable. Where have you dimmed your potential? Be honest. What dreams have you told yourself you can't achieve? What excuses have you been using? Where have you hidden your true self? Who do you pretend to be? What parts of yourself do you keep locked away? Why? What choices have you been avoiding? What decisions are you stuck on? What are you waiting for? What's the real reason you're not moving forward? Who have you outgrown but refused to release? Which relationships are you maintaining out of fear rather than love? Where are you playing small to keep others comfortable? What timeline have you told yourself you've missed? What have you decided you're too late for? Why? Who decided that timeline? And what would you do if you stopped believing it? Write it all down. Every uncomfortable truth,
every secret fear, every way these fears have been limiting you, because you cannot transform what you will not confront. You cannot overcome what you will not name. You cannot grow past what you will not acknowledge. Understanding your fears isn't the end goal. It's the starting line. It's the first step toward truly living your most empowered life. Not someday when you feel ready, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have more time, more money, more confidence. Now, today, this moment. Your unspoken fears have had their time. They've shaped enough of your story. They've made enough of your decisions. They've stolen enough of your dreams. Now it's your turn to take the pen back. It's your turn to write the next chapter. It's your turn to become the author of your own life. The most powerful, authentic, fulfilled version of you is waiting on the other side of these 5 fears. They're ready. They've always been ready. The question is, are you finally ready to show up? Because the world doesn't need another person playing small. It needs you, the real you, the full you, the brave you. So unmask those fears, face them down, and step into everything you're meant to be. Your journey starts now.